I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for joining me for the 2023 preview of Coastal Carolina football. And some of you are shocked I'm doing this, but if you follow football, you shouldn't be shocked. I'm Brian Knight. I am not Bobby Durkins, at least not here. If you don't know who Bobby Durkins is, just look up Bobby Durkins in YouTube. By the way, the shorts I've been doing, a lot of people have really been liking them as Bobby Durkins. So go check that out. But subscribe to this channel. It helps the channel out. Hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel. Remember, all of it's free. I live in the upstate of South Carolina, and the closest team to me within 45 minutes is, well, these guys. I grew up right outside of Clemson. I love Clemson. I'm a Clemson YouTuber a lot of people would see me as a Clemson YouTuber. I just think I'm a guy who talks about Clemson football and then college football and then does comedy on the side. But everybody knows me for these guys. Of course, they know that I vehemently despise those chickens from Columbia. But there's another school that has a bird, the Chanticleers, in Conway, South Carolina. Now, I want to denote Conway, South Carolina, and not Myrtle Beach, as most people say. Now, I know for the mass media, when they go to a game at Coastal Carolina, the easiest place to point on a map to, drive by college football fans is to call Coastal Carolina a Myrtle Beach team. But it's Conway, South Carolina. And this little team from Conway, South Carolina, who's only been in existence for a little over 20 years, was in the FCS level. They did some okay things here. They produced a great player like Josh Norman. But 3 years ago, there was a season that was very magical, with probably a 2-star or 1-star quarterback that nobody had heard of. This quarterback came from the Indian Trail area of Charlotte, North Carolina. Everything was locked down, and what propelled them to infamy was they were undefeated. They were doing good, and everybody was like, wow, this little team from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is doing really, really good. But how good are they? And then something happened. Because of everything that was going on in 2020, BYU had a game that was canceled. And if my memory serves me correct, it was on the Thursday before the Saturday. Coastal and BYU agreed to play one another in little old Conway, South Carolina. BYU was undefeated. They had Zach Wilson as the quarterback, and they came to Myrtle Beach. Sorry for hitting the screen. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, to play Coastal. Now, everybody thought Coastal was going to do a good job, but we know what happened. Coastal won the ball game. And after that, the nation's eyes was on Coastal Carolina. Now, that season, they went undefeated. I think they finished in the top 15. And Grayson McCall went on to be Grayson McCall. Now, let's fast forward. The last 2 seasons have been good, but they have not been amazing. They have not blown away anybody by no stretch of the imagination. In fact, last year, Coastal Carolina posted a 9-4 record, and of that 9-4, they lost 49-21 to a very underwhelming Old Dominion team who one of their running backs rushed for almost 250 yards. They did beat Appalachian State 35-28, an Appalachian State team that beat Texas A&M. And then James Madison. Yeah, James Madison's been good here and there, but not this good. 47-7. They blew out Coastal Carolina. And then Coastal Carolina went on to play East Carolina in the Birmingham Bowl, and they got beat by 24 points, 53-29. And there was injuries here and there. Of course, Grayson McCall in 2021 had injury issues. He's had some injury issues last year. And then Jamie Chadwell, the very well-known coach, ends up leaving at the end of last season. Grayson McCall ends up going to the transfer portal. And transparently between you and I have no clue. I don't know all the ins and outs. I have no clue why nobody picked this kid up. If I was Alabama, I would want him running things, not Tyler Buckner. And I know some of you call me crazy. That's not the last or first time that I've heard that said. But let's talk about this season. I'm 5 minutes in. I'm sorry. I just want to talk about Coastal because I really like Coastal. I've been to some of their games over the past few years. Their stadium only seats about 21,000 people, but I'll tell you that it's just a lot of fun. Brooks Stadium is a lot of fun. It's right on the side of the road there. I think that's 501 or 544. I think it's 501. I was at the Army game last year with my sons. My oldest son, his favorite team is Coastal. Last year, I went to Georgia State and saw Coastal play. It was a great time, and been to a game back in 2021. Let's talk about this year's Coastal's team. Now, as I said, in the offseason, one of their top players transferred from Josiah Stewart transferred. I'll tell you how good he was. He transferred from Coastal Carolina to Michigan, and they took him. They were happy to take him. That's how good Josiah Stewart was. But they have Grayson McCall coming back. He ended up leaving the transfer portal, staying at Coastal Carolina. So if you stuck with me so far, I'm sorry for being long-winded. I just really like watching this football team, and I think they're a lot of fun. Grayson McCall, 6'3", 215-pound senior. The guy is a true dual threat quarterback. I've sat and watched Trevor Lawrence play. Now, I'm not going to say that Grayson McCall is Trevor Lawrence. Clean the wax out of your ears. I didn't say that, but I will tell you this. His RPO, and that's what they run there, his ability to all of a sudden have the ball down here and up and 30 yards down the field, it looks a lot like Trevor Lawrence. Yes, folks, I just said that, and I stand beside it. I've watched him have the ball down here, and suddenly the ball is 30 yards downfield, hitting a receiver in stride with coverage on him. He is that good. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Once again, if Clemson did not have a quarterback right now and Dabo was willing to hit the transfer portal and this guy was available, especially in Garrett Riley's offense, I think the nation would be shocked how well Grayson McCall would fit into it and how well he would lead the team. He has had some injuries over the past few years, so that's something to watch out with him. Now, when we get to the running back room, it's really, really interesting, and I'm not going to remember all of the running backs for Coastal Carolina. But to name off a few, Reese White. Reese White is a 5'10", 200-pound senior. This guy has been around for some of the greatest moments of Coastal Carolina football, and he's very talented. Then next up, you have Braden Bennett. Now, if you're a South Carolina fan, you know his dad, Brandon Bennett. Yes, Brandon Bennett, who used to play for the Gamecocks way back when, played in the NFL. He is a fantastic player. He's actually out of Southside High School in Greenville, South Carolina, who was notoriously a terrible football team. This guy right here, he can play, he can run. He's I mean, when you give him the ball, he's a big deal. Next up, CJ Beasley. He's a redshirt junior. This guy, he can play. Are you starting to see a little bit of a theme here? They have the ability to run the football, especially with Grayson McCall. He can run the football. You have to respect the run against this team because they have three running backs who can really, really come after you, and you have to respect it. Now, in the passing game, and I'm going to move a little quicker here, the passing game, they have Sam Pinckney. Sam Pinckney is a talented wide receiver. He's a redshirt senior. The guy can go up and get the football. He's one of those guys that you have to respect his ability. And the thing is, he's a big body. He's 6'4", 215 pounds. He's just someone you have to respect. Next up is Jared Brown. Jared Brown's 6 foot tall, about 185. Once again, this guy, he goes up, he can get the football. You have to respect his ability, his playability, and his shiftiness. And so you do have that you have to respect when you're going up against this team. Another name, Tyson Mobley. Now, he's a senior. Tyson is another 6 foot tall, 170 kind of shifty player, but he adds that other dimension of shiftiness, running the slot. He can play. He can get the football. But of course, Sam Pinckney is the focal point when you're playing against them. And then next up would probably be Jared Brown. Would be the easiest way for me to knock this out or highlight their abilities. Now, let's talk about a player from 2 years ago that was with them, who's now in the NFL playing for the Baltimore Ravens. As soon as I just saw how he would walk from the sideline to the huddle. And just the way he walked, I mean, that's a pro football player, and it was Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely, he played tight end at Coastal Carolina. Go look up his highlights while he was there. During that 2020 season, it was just absolutely mind-boggling how good he was. In the 2021 season, he had an incredible season. That's why he's playing for the Ravens. I think he was one of the best picks of the 2022 draft. They really got a steal with him. So he's been around these players. That's the type of players who's really been part of this big move on the offensive side of the ball. Now, on the offensive line, I will tell you, they return 5 starters. Donnell Wilson, Will McDonald, and Willie Moise. Please forgive me if I mispronounced his name. Most all of these guys are under 300 pounds, or they're right at 300 pounds. The largest members on the defense is Donnell Wilson, 6'5", 315. And then Dylan Luther is 6'3", 310 pounds. All of these guys, except for Willie Moise, please forgive me again, all of them are seniors. So there's a lot of seniority on this offense. I don't look, even with a new head coach, Tim Beck, and I should have said that just a second ago, he replaces Jamie Chadwell, which is like, he wants to be the man who has to follow up the man. Tim Beck feels comfortable doing that, and I respect that. With that said, you will see some changes in the offense, but hopefully they won't make too many changes, because how Grayson McCall and Reese White, CJ Beasley, Sam Pinckney, how these guys are playing, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So a lot of their problems, unfortunately, has come on the defensive side of the ball. Let's switch over there. You remember I said that last year they gave up over 200, almost 250 yards to one running back on Old Dominion's team. Now, remember, that Old Dominion team last year was absolutely trash. Everybody who watched this game against Coastal was sitting there scratching their head, and I was one of them. Now, I didn't watch it live or in person. I was watching on TV, but just to let you know, Old Dominion finished 3-9 last year. That's right, 3-9. And one of their only wins was against Coastal, and they blew them out. Why? Coastal's defense has been questionable. James Madison, 47-7 last year. And you think, well, James Madison was amazing last year. James Madison was 8-3. They didn't do a bad job, but they were 8-3 last year. And they finished first. The one thing that's interesting about this team is that this year they only returned 5 players on the offense, and they're picked to finish about 5th or 6th in the conference this year. So maybe some things will change. But the defense has been definitely a big question on the side of Coastal Carolina. Now, on the defensive side, they only returned 4 starters. Remember, I said Josiah Stewart, who, by the way, when he walked out on the field, he looked like a beast. But they lost. They lost a lot. Willie Lampkin, Antoine Loper. They had Adrian Hope, who's gone. They have Gerard Clark. The secondary is beyond questionable. I would tell you the returning starters is led by J.T. Killen. J.T. Killen is a 6'3", 225-pound senior linebacker. This guy is kind of known and seen as Grayson McCall is on the offense. Now, he does have some help from 6'3", 275-pound defensive tackle Kennedy Roberts, and he does have fellow linebacker Shane Bruce working with him, and Tobias Fletcher in the secondary. But transparently, that's the only names that are returning from last year's team. And once again, not a very good defensive unit. Now, you could step back and say that defensive coordinators, Dan Carroll and I believe it's Craig Navier, that they have their work cut out for them. Okay. They do have the work cut out for them. The good thing is, if you're a defense who is struggling, you have an offense that can score at will. So let's go ahead and hop in. Let's hop into let me see. Let's hop in and look at their schedule for this season. Now, they have a very interesting schedule because it starts at the Rose Bowl in UCLA. Now, if you're anything like me, when you hear Rose Bowl and UCLA, you're not blown away. You need to understand that this year UCLA is picked to finish, let's see. They're picked to finish 6th in what's left of the Pac-10, Pac-12, probably 4 now. But the only thing that is working or going for UCLA is that they have the name UCLA and that it's at the Rose Bowl. I would personally like to see this game. In fact, the tickets are very affordable. It's just trying to get to California in the next couple of weeks will be quite the problem. Now, UCLA did sign Dante Moore, who was a 5-star quarterback. He was originally committed to Oregon, but now he's going to, he changed that. Now he's going to play for UCLA. You'll probably see him in this game. UCLA doesn't have that many starters on the offense. In fact, they only have 3 offensive starters on the offense. On the defense, they do have 8 starters. That's where there could be a problem to a point. But their strength would be going against the strength of Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina has the strength on the offense. What might work in Coastal's favor here is against UCLA. UCLA, as I said, their offense only returns 3 starters and will probably start Dante Moore. Ethan Garbers could be the starter for them, but don't be shocked if Dante Moore, unless he is hurt and I don't know about it, and there's a great chance it is. I didn't look that up before I got on here. Dante Moore will be playing in this game. Go ahead and rest assured. Go ahead and take that to the bank. He will be playing. He will be playing in this game. As of today, August the 21st, we'll look at the line here. I'll pull up the line for UCLA, Coastal Carolina. According to ESPN, UCLA has an 84% chance of winning this game. But I want you to think about this. You have this teeny tiny team in their eyes coming from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, right? And they're coming to play at the world-famous Rose Bowl, which, guys, y'all know that would be a lot of fun. I don't care even if UCLA is terrible. Going to play at the Rose Bowl and playing in Pasadena, that's going to be a lot of fun. Still, the line is only 14.5 points as of today, August the 21st. So you say, Brian, what are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that this is not a blowout game. You know it. I know it. This is not a blowout game. This is not a game that you sit there and you look and you go, well, this itty-bitty team from South Carolina is going to come over and get blown out by UCLA. Folks, I will not be shocked if Coastal Carolina wins this game. If their defense plays well, you have my word. It will not be a shock or out of the realm of possibility that Coastal Carolina wins the game. That will be a 10:30 game, Eastern Standard Time, a week from this coming Saturday. Yes, folks, college football is here. That'll be official week 1. Of course, week 0 is this weekend. So let's move forward in that game. To me, that's a toss-up. If Coastal Carolina's defense was better, I would go ahead and call it. Coastal would win this game. But that's not the case. That's not the case. So, I lean towards UCLA to win this game, but it is not like the upset of a lifetime. If UCLA were to lose, Coastal would come out prevail. Next game up, you'll have your first game at Brooks Stadium there in Conway on September the 9th. Jacksonville State Gamecocks, I truly believe that Coastal wins this ball game. I really don't see anything that would suggest otherwise. Another 7 o'clock game, Duquesne will be coming to Coastal, and that once again, I believe would be very much a winnable game. Be very much a winnable game for them. They'll I believe wholeheartedly they'll be at least 2-1 there. I would not be shocked once again if they went 3-0 because I've seen Coastal play, and they're just a talented football team, and they're a lot of fun to watch. So, if I haven't thrown this out there already, Coastal is picked to win preseason to win their division or their conference, followed by Troy, Appalachian State, South Alabama, Georgia Southern, James Madison, and then we get to Georgia State. And I was at the TED last year. My good buddy Parker Henderson came, met me and my oldest son. We watched that game because I looked on a map and I was like, the closest game to me that is a Coastal game, other than going to Coastal or Appalachian State. And Appalachian State, they were playing at Coastal last year. Was Atlanta, which is about 2.5 hours from me. So my son and I hopped in the car. We drove down there and saw Georgia State. Now, Georgia State beat them 2 years ago. Beat them 2 years ago from what I can remember at Brooks Stadium. The problem with Georgia State, they return 5 on the offense. So that works in the favor of the defense of Coastal. But their defense was not that great, and they only returned 4 on the defense. And so that doesn't look too well for them. I lean towards Coastal winning this ball game. So I believe at this point they'll be at least 3-1. Next up, they'll play Georgia Southern. They'll go down to Statesboro, Georgia, play the Georgia Southern Eagles. Georgia Southern is picked to finish, I believe, 5th. Yeah, they're picked 5th to finish 5th in the conference this year. They returned 7 on offense, so that might be a little more of a problem for the defense of Coastal, especially if they're still struggling. But the offensive side or the defensive side, they really are not looking that well. So I definitely believe that right now that at this point, unless something crazy changes, I believe you're going to see Coastal win this game as well. They'll take the week off. They'll be off. And I believe at this point they'll be 4-1. Once again, 5-1 is not out of the imagination of this team. Parker Henderson, by the way, congratulations. Not congratulations. What am I saying? I need help. God help me. He is a Georgia Southern graduate. So Parker Henderson representing, although he said he does not enjoy Georgia Southern football. He's a Clemson fan through and through. Then they're going to be off on Saturday the 7th. His degree says Georgia Southern. That's what it says. Then they play at Appalachian State. Now, for anybody who's driving by and you really don't know Coastal football, you don't know Appalachian State football, Appalachian State is in western North Carolina. Now, it's not western North Carolina, say like where Western Carolina, the Catamounts, is located over in Cullowhee. But it is more towards the Johnson City, Tennessee, Bristol, Virginia, Bristol, Tennessee area, kind of like that. That's the easiest way for me to say it. It's only 45 minutes from the real Mayberry, Mount Airy, North Carolina. So they're up in the mountains. Beautiful stadium, Kidd Brewer Stadium. And then you have this team down in Conway. They're right there at Myrtle Beach. You're at the beach. 2 totally different atmospheres. And guess what? These 2 teams have a pretty good rivalry. And transparently, recently, Coastal's been owning it. Coastal has to go up on a Tuesday night. Yes, folks. I'm serious. It's going to be a Tuesday night, October the 10th. And Coastal's going up there. This is a projected number 1 versus number 3 in the conference. All right. The thing about Appalachian State, and we know what they did at the big house and all this bunch of team, that team's gone. They were 6-6 last year. They lost Chase Bryce, former Clemson quarterback. They did some really cool things last year. They went toe-to-toe with North Carolina, lost 63-61. They beat Texas A&M last year, 17-14 at Texas A&M. But the thing you have to look at with Coastal, or not Coastal, but Appalachian State, they dropped games to James Madison, Texas State. Of course, they lost to Coastal, but they lost to Marshall. And you can say, well, Marshall was okay. Marshall wasn't amazing. And Georgia Southern. So they were 6-6 last year, even with the big win against Texas A&M. This is going to be a hard-fought game. And their defense only returns 4 players. All right? They have Dingle Prince, the 6-foot, 265-pound defensive end. Everybody knows him. He's a very talented player. But overall, this does not fare well for Appalachian State. This doesn't fare well even for their offense against the questionable defense of Coastal Carolina. Coastal's defense would actually have a more, how can I say this, manageable approach to this Appalachian State team. Peoples is gone. That great running back who was a bruiser for Appalachian State, he's gone. Chase Bryce is gone. I mean, you lost some big players last year. I mean, they lost some massive players. Cameron Peoples is gone. So there's a lot of questions there. I lean towards Coastal winning this game as long as they're healthy. And so, I mean, at this point, we're looking at what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins at this point, possibly being 6-0. Then they go to Arkansas State. They're in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And Arkansas State is nothing to write home about. This is a team who returns very few starters. They were 3-9 last year. They were 1-7. And you know their coach, former Tennessee coach, Butch Jones. I think that Arkansas State loses this game. Next up, you play Marshall. Now, Marshall is an interesting team because you never know which Marshall you're going to get. Marshall that went to Notre Dame and won last year, is that going to be the team that you get? Remember, Marshall went 9-4 last year. And they have their starting quarterback. He's back. The bad thing is the strength on their side is the weakness of Coastal. They have 7 of their offensive players coming back. 2 of their wide receivers are back. 4 of their offensive linemen are back. So that could be a problem for Coastal. But their defense only has about 4 players who's coming back. So if they get into a shootout, I feel quite confident that Coastal can pull this off. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, being at Brooks Stadium, especially if Coastal at this point is 6-1 or maybe even 7-0, do not be shocked if that place is packed out. Even though it's 21,000, it's going to be packed out, and they win that ball game. And I call them to win that ball game. Let's move up, and we're starting to get a little. We're getting close here to the end, and I'm going to speed up as well. At Old Dominion, Old Dominion embarrassed them. The reason it was embarrassing is because Old Dominion wasn't that good. I fully expect Old Dominion to get payback on this game. I fully expect Old Dominion to lose this game. They only return 3 on the defense. They return 5 on the offense. They have 3 wide receivers and 2 offensive linemen that are coming back. I think, even though this game's going to be at Old Dominion, they're in Virginia, I call this game for them. Texas State. Texas State is at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the Sun Belt Conference. And I wholeheartedly believe that they take care of business there. It's at Brooks Stadium as well. Now, here's an interesting game. I was at the Army Coastal game last year. It was the first sellout. It was announced that was the first sellout of Brooks Stadium, and I had a great time. I took my son and I took my 2 nephews. In fact, one of them I believe is watching this video right now. I just got a screenshot sent to me of him watching the video. I always love it when my nephews and niece watch the show. But we had a great time that night. Of course, Coastal won the ball game. The interesting fact about Army this year, folks, buckle up. This is not a glitch. Army, the Black Knights of West Point, they are no longer running option football, triple option football. They are now a spread offense. I'm not kidding, folks. I read it like 14 or 15 times. They have changed their offense. So the offense that you saw last year playing against Coastal and the offense that you saw 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 75 years ago is not the offense that they're running anymore because it was the same offense. And I think that's going to play into Coastal's favor. And I'm going to tell you why. Ask Georgia Tech how easy it is to go from an option football team to a spread. Ask Nebraska and Callahan how easy it was to go from option football to a pass-based offense. Remember, that's when Nebraska went to crap. So, personally, I think Coastal wins this game because of that. Last, James Madison. Now, James Madison embarrassed them, probably worse. They've been embarrassed in absolutely years, 47-7 last year. This game's going to be at Brooks Stadium. Now, remember, I told you James Madison was 8-3 last year. And they're returning their entire offensive line. But except for that, on the offense, everybody's new. Everybody is new. So that helps Coastal's weakness. That plays in favor of Coastal's weakness, and that's their defense. Some people would say, well, a good line I agree with that 100%. But a new quarterback, now we have to say this will be the very last regular season of the game for both teams. Once again, I come back. I believe that Coastal wins this football game. It's going to be at Brooks Stadium. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of people there. And I'm going to tell you, if Coastal has only one loss at this point, and especially if they're undefeated, this will be a big deal. Coastal will be ranked in the top 25. And if they win these games handily, they could be ranked in the top 20 at this point. It's not out of the question. I don't think that Coastal would get past number 18 or 17 in the country. It's just kind of how their schedule works out, kind of their perception of how they're seen across the country. But I would not be shocked if you're looking at a top 25, top 20 team, undefeated, crazy numbers by Grayson McCall. That would be a big deal. And once again, you would have another 2020-like football season where the eyes of the country is on little Myrtle Beach, Conway, South Carolina. And then, of course, the Sun Belt Championship will be held later on. What is the date on that? December the 2nd. And Coastal would be in it. Of course, the top contenders is Troy State. Notice that Troy is not on this schedule. Troy is predicted to finish second. So we wouldn't be shocked if they ended up playing them for the conference championship. So where do I see Coastal for this season? Worst case scenario, let's just say they drop a couple because of either injuries, maybe some offensive the offensive side of the things, or I mean, defensive side of the things, I would lean towards obviously UCLA when they play Appalachian State. I know that's blasphemy to say that to a Coastal fan base. You could see it there because the game is at App State. It's a beautiful place, but that will be a tough environment to play in. That would be a game to keep my eyes on. I would definitely consider Georgia State. Georgia State has been a problem. In 2021, they were a problem. Now, granted, former quarterback Bryce Carpenter had to play that game because Grayson McCall's injured. And, I mean, it is what it is. Injuries happen. Hopefully, he'll stay healthy. But I would have my eye on that game as well. I would probably say, looking at this schedule, these are just the toss-up games. Marshall, even though the game is there, I would keep my eyes on Marshall. So the games to watch that are kind of a game of concern, but I believe you'll win it. But if there was an upset, it would be the games. Definitely Marshall, definitely Appalachian State, Georgia State. And so those would be the three games that I would pay attention to. UCLA, I'm telling you, the nation's going to be like shocked, and they're going to treat it like it's some massive upset. Quite honestly, I believe if UCLA was called, I don't know, Marshall, if you called UCLA Marshall, I don't think that this would be a 14-point differential. I think that a lot of people would say, it's kind of a 7-point lead, a 7-point line over Coastal. But anybody could win this ball game. 14 points is really not that big of a deal, but I see that worst case scenario for Coastal. I see them going 8 and no, I can't even say that. I would say worst case scenario 8 and 4. That would be worst case scenario. But I believe realistically 11 and 1, and not stretching it too much. 12 and 0 is very very much a possibility for this Coastal team. And transparently, I think it would be a great way to send out Grayson McCall and usher in the Tim Beck era. The former NC State offensive coordinator is now the head coach. Sorry if I didn't share that already. But this team, I'm pulling for them. I'm going to try to go see them. In fact, I am going to go see them this year. I've already bought tickets to one of their games. It's going to be a great time. Might try to get tickets to another game. I just really enjoy watching Coastal. So Coastal Carolina, your fan base, if you're new here and you've come across this video, please leave me a comment and let me know that you're here. Pass along to your other Coastal Carolina friends and even your media team, because I really like your football team. I mean, these are my guys. I'm pulling for them 100%, but I've enjoyed my time at Brooks Stadium. And I will be coming to see, it's already in the books, I'm coming to see Coastal play one of your games. So I wish you the best of luck. As I said, 8 and 4, worst case scenario. Realistically, I think 11 and 1 or 12 and 0. I wish you luck. Folks, thank you for joining me. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the little notification bell. Yeah, I do that and I make fun of myself. It actually notifies you. That's why we call it notification bell. It lets you know when I go live. Folks, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And as always, go Tigers.